Shielding teens from increased exposure to marijuana was a key selling point of the legalization plan California voters approved in 2016. The measure included toughest-in-the-nation protections for children, proponents said, by banning cannabis advertising aimed at those under age 21 and restricting where billboards can be placed. Unfortunately, in the 5 years since voters passed Proposition 64, it's been a non-stop game of whack-a-mole to try to keep the pot industry and cannabis regulators faithful to these promises. And success has been mixed. First, a prominent cannabis website found a loophole in the law and started throwing billboards up alongside major freeways, even though Proposition 64 says licensed marijuana businesses can advertise on billboards along interstate highways. How did the maps get away with it? Turns out the $1.5 billion company isn't a licensed cannabis business, it's a website that advertises cannabis businesses. So the ban on advertising on interstate highway billboards does not apply. Several lawmakers, including an assemblyman, now Attorney General Rob Bonta, wrote a bill to close that loophole in the billboard ban. But it never passed. Then state cannabis regulators blew an even bigger hole in the freeway billboard ban. They claimed that the sentence in Proposition 64 that says licensed cannabis businesses can advertise on billboards on an interstate highway or state highway which crosses the border of any other state was meant to discourage interstate commerce, not to prohibit advertising marijuana on interstate. In 2019, regulators passed a rule allowing legal pot businesses to advertise on billboards along interstate highways, as long as the signs were more than 15 miles from the state border, essentially making pot billboards permissible on almost every mile of freeway in California. Predictably, the ads proliferated, until a San Luis Obispo man sued. Matthew Farmer, the father of 2 teenagers, argued that in his lawsuit that state officials had illegally changed the law voters passed. His lawyer said Farmer voted for Proposition 64 with the understanding that it would prohibit advertising marijuana to minors and on heavily trafficked interstate highways, and that he grew concerned when cannabis billboards went up along the 101 freeway his family routinely travels. A judge agreed that state cannabis regulators had improperly allowed the billboards, in violation of Proposition 64's advertising restrictions, and the State Department of Cannabis Control yanked its rule. But of course that wasn't the last word. The cannabis industry flexed its lobbying muscle in Sacramento and pushed for a bill to unravel the judge's order. Governor Gavin Newsom had the good sense to reject it, recognizing, in his veto message, that when voters passed Proposition 64 they enacted robust protections shielding youth from exposure to cannabis and cannabis advertising.